example here, I think of a case photograph, and we're seeing where over time, by opening it, we've got so the beginnings of the leather is beginning to pull away from the wood here, and I think you can all kind of see that. So when I go to open this, one of the things, and in fact, well, look at that, it's not even attached at all. This is really common with these kinds of photos. So what we want to do is be very gentle, and in this case we know that they are not, it's not attached, but if it were a little bit hinged just slightly, like a book, I would want to have some kind of a support underneath it. Now, from here, we can, you know, examine this, we can look at this. This is an ambrotype, I think. It's not mirrored. It's behind glass, I think. Is that right? Because it's not mirrored,
Yeah.
so it's not a daguerreotype. And there's a great book in the book bin about the two people who started photography that I may pick up today. But anyway, caring for these long term, what I might do is I might put these back together. I might use something like cloth twill tape to hold these together, the two pieces together. They're meant to be together. They're meant to be cushioned and as one. Sometimes the cases themselves can tell you information about the object, so you do want to try to keep them together. And if they were going to be in, let's say, a storage box like this is my favorite, we'll get that next. If they were in a storage box and there were a bunch of them, let's say I had a narrow box, maybe half this deep, and I wanted to put a bunch of them together, I might create little channels. I might put little nests so that I have cloth tape around this, holding it shut, not tight, but shut. And then I might put a couple of them in a box, but I would put some kind of material so they don't slide into each other, and they don't have any weight on them, okay?
Could you use archival tissue?
I could use archival tissue. I could use ethafoam, cushy polyester. I could also use boxes that have dividers if they were the right size and it was kind of cushioned, and I'd probably put a cushion between each one of them. The nice thing about using boxes for something like this, these don't get hit by light very often because of course they're cased, but if I have a nice box for them, nice microclimate for them.
I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
So in terms of scanning this,
Mm-hmm.
so I want to do that before I add the protective mechanisms,
Mm-hmm.
and scan every surface.
Would I, in this case, I would photograph the object rather
Okay.
than putting it on a scanner.
Right, okay.
Photography, you can say scan to include digital photography. That's just fine. But you'd want a digital single lens reflex camera. You might shoot the case, and then you might shoot the inside, and you would shoot the image. And
Mhm.
if you can light it, you may have to light it from the side. You'd have to play around, especially if you're playing around with daguerreotypes because of the mirrored image. You have to play around with the lighting a little bit to rake it so that you can actually get the image, and you probably need to be right on top of it to actually get the piece well.
So when we had that Profiles of Honor tour, what he
Yeah.
would do
Mm-hmm.
is put on, and they had a scanner that had a removable top.
Yes.
So he'd put it, and they put that, but then he'd put a dark drape
A dark
over
drape
it,
over it. You can absolutely do that if you're not
pressing.
pressing or breaking the binding,
Yeah.
right? If it's really, really fragile and the binding is going to snap
Yeah.
when you're doing that, that's why I would, if you have a camera set up, great. If you don't have a camera set up and it's okay, then yes, I would put them on a flatbed. But not with the lid down. Absolutely. You're absolutely right with that, Kara.
So maybe what we should get at the library is one of those cameras that's up on a stand that,
Or-
where you
yeah.
set it underneath there.
Or even a three-dimensional, you can set up, those can be really expensive. You can get a digital single-lens reflex camera and set it up on a tripod, a desktop tripod, and put in a little pop-up tent and light from the outside. You put it in the box and you shoot right down on top of it. So a camera may be more flexible for you and a little less expensive. I can show you some examples of that if you'd like me to send you some examples. We did botanical specimens that way because herbarium specimens have some dimension to them, and you don't want to put dried herbs down on a flat bed. It'll crush it. So we would put them in a little tent, little box tent, fabric, pop up, and we pop them inside, put them out. You could do hundreds in a day that way. It was really efficient, surprisingly efficient, actually. Okay, let's look at
That's the